Now you've got to admit that this looks a lot like the Winchester 97, which is in my right hand, actually to your left, but it's not. And so Winchester had these 93s out, and nobody was happy with them. And Winchester was afraid he was really going to get a black eye on this deal. And so at the same time that these 93s were being produced and sold, Winchester was working on another shotgun called the 97 shotgun that all of us are familiar with. And the 97 now was made for smokeless powder. And of course, there was still some black powder out there, but it was made for smokeless powder. So the steel and everything else was beefed up a little bit to make sure that it worked properly. It actually had some changes too. If you notice on the top of this one, you don't have that cutout like you do on this one. And I'll tell you why that's so important here in a minute. And so Winchester started making this shotgun, and it really did well. This began to be one of the best shotguns that Winchester ever produced. And it's like I said, they made 800,000 of these shotguns. Now that was a lot of shotguns. That was certainly better than the 64,000 of the lever action shotguns that he had made. So finally Winchester had a winner. Now, the thing that's important to understand is that when the 97 came out, Winchester went to all the dealers and all the people who had purchased 93 shotguns, knowing that they weren't as strong and they were having problems with them, and traded them a brand new 97 for their 93 shotgun. Now, they only made about 30,000 93 shotguns. When Winchester traded a 97 for a 93, they took the 93 shotgun and destroyed it. And so they destroyed all of them except about 2,500. In fact, George Midas, who is the guru of Winchester history, says that they destroyed so many of the 93 shotguns that they could only find about 2,300 of them left in collections worldwide. And so that makes the 93 really a rare shotgun. Rarity is what makes them valuable. And so they were really valuable. Now let me tell you how I ended up with, I actually have two of these shotguns. I had never seen a 93 before. And so I never knew exactly how they felt or what they looked like. But I looked at the photographs that I'd seen, and I saw this piece here missing out of the top of the action. And so that was the only external thing that I knew was going to earmark a 93. And so every time I went to a gun show, I would look for that in several hundred that you might see of 97 shotguns and never seeing one. All of a sudden, about 22 years ago, I was at a gun show in Reno, Nevada, and I was just coming to about the last table in the gun show, maybe the last 10 tables, and every time I'd come to a 97 shotgun, or what looked like a 97, I would just run my hand over the top of it like this, and if it was smooth with no cutout, I knew it was just a 97. I wouldn't even stop to bother to take a look at it. All of a sudden I came to this one, I felt that cutout, and I looked down on it, and I recognized this was a 93 from the pictures I'd seen. And so the guy had this one on his table and one other gun. I asked him if I could take a look at it, and he says, sure, go ahead. So I took a look at it, and the other way that you know it's a 93 shotgun is on the lever right here. It says Winchester Model 1893. So I knew it wasn't a 97, I knew it was a 93. I needed one desperately for my collection. I don't think I could live for another day if I didn't have one. And so I asked him how much he wanted for it. He says, well, you see the price tag, I'm asking $350. Now keep in mind that they're probably worth 10 times $350. But I don't like to pay the full price if I don't have to. And so I said, are you sure that you got to have that? You wouldn't deal on that a little bit? And he said, well, make me an offer. I said, now my heart's just beating, and I'm thinking, boy, this is not very smart. He might decide not to sell it at all. And I said, $250. He says, take it. So there's a 97 that he thought he had, and a 93 is what it really was. And so you can see why that's important. The other 93 shotgun is I was into Cabela's, in Reno, Nevada. And if you've been to Cabela's, and you know they have the gun library where they have all their expensive and really exotic, fancy guns, and also really historic guns like Henrys and 73s, 76s, and whatever. I was in there and I kind of looked around, and then on the outside of that room, they normally have a bunch of racks of cheaper shotguns and rifles and so forth that you can look through. And I looked through, and there was another 93. And I thought, it must not work. And so I looked at it, and it was actually in better condition than the one I'd bought earlier. And what they thought they had was a 97. It was priced as a 97 at $350. And so obviously I went in and paid another $350 for another 93, the only two I'd ever seen. So sometimes you got to keep your eyes open. You got to read a little bit. You got to study some of the things that's going on, and there are still those sleepers out there that you need to know about. So there's the 87, the 93, the 97 that they sold 800,000 of them. And then finally, in 1901, Winchester decided he was going to take another crack at this lever action shotgun to see if it would sell. And so they put this one in 10 gauge only, and they made a little bit wider the steel in the action to take the smokeless powder. So it was a little thicker, a little heavier, and it was in 10 gauge only. The lever has a two-piece lever on this one. You can see how this opens up a little bit. If you can come in close on that. See how that opens up. But the same rolling block action, the same smooth action, 10 gauge only. So they put these out with these new shotguns that they had. And keep in mind now that Winchester had two other actually pretty good selling shotguns out, the 1887, the 1893, and the 97 especially. And so it kind of took the market away from this. So they only made about 3,500 of these, and then that's all they made. So these are really a rare shotgun too. And so this is the model 1901. Now finally, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about this other one. Almost all of you can recognize this as the A5, or originally the Auto 5. And this was a brainchild of John Browning. And he'd been working on this patent for over 10 years to try to build this up, so he had something that was a self-loading, semi-automatic shotgun or rifle. And finally he invented it, and they got into a dispute over pricing, and Winchester told him to pack it in, and he separated from John Browning, and John Browning separated from Winchester. That is known today as the Great Divorce between Winchester and John Browning. And the next video we do, I'll take you through the details of that very nasty divorce and explain to you what happened. And it'll be interesting. So stay with us then, and we'll talk more about it.